This happened a few years ago. I was 34 and living in a quirky historic town. I had just started freelancing as a graphic designer. That summer, I volunteered to help organize the local 4th of July events. I thought it would be fun and a good way to meet people. The town had charm, with old brick streets and aging wooden houses. There was a park where everyone gathered for the holiday. That evening I was hanging streamers in the park when I heard something. Muffled voices drifted from a nearby abandoned house. I paused, thinking maybe it was a couple of kids messing around. But I didn't want to deal with that, so I shook my head and went back to my work. The whispers grew louder as I decorated. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. I glanced over at the house again. All I saw were shadows. But then, I could have sworn I saw movement in the windows. It felt strange. Was I imagining it? I shook my head again and focused on my task. As night fell, the whispers were still there. I felt a chill run down my spine, but I refused to let it distract me. I quickly finished decorating just as the fireworks were about to start. The park filled with families and laughter. I joined them, trying to soak in the excitement. The first firework lit up the sky with a loud bang. I felt excited. I turned to my left ready to share the moment, but something caught my eye. I noticed shadowy figures moving in the windows of that same abandoned house again. I blinked and they were gone. I told myself it was just a trick of the light. The crowd was cheering, fireworks bursting above. But then, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I spun around, startled. Nobody was there. My heart raced. Maybe I just imagined it. I looked around, but everyone was focused on the sky. I shook my head, trying to push back my unease. As the night went on, I kept thinking about what happened. The whispers, the shadows, and the tap on my shoulder lingered in my mind. When the last firework fizzled out, I felt drained. I thought about that house again, and I wasn't sure I wanted to return next year. Was I just being paranoid, or was something really off about that place? With that thought hanging in the air, I started toward my car. Then, I heard a faint laugh. It sent a shiver down my spine. I turned around, hoping to find someone behind me. I looked everywhere, but there was nobody at all. I felt a cold breeze brush past me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was in that abandoned house was still watching. I hurried to my car, and I haven't looked back since. The next morning I woke up tired. I had hardly slept the night before. My mind kept wandering back to that abandoned house. I was curious and anxious, both at once. I decided I needed answers. After breakfast, I grabbed a notebook and walked to the town's library. Maybe there were records or stories about the house. As I entered, the scent of old books washed over me. I approached the librarian, an older woman with kind eyes. "Excuse me," I said. "Do you have any information about that old house on Elm Street? The one that's been abandoned for years?" Her expression shifted, just a bit. "That house? People say it's haunted. Strange things have happened there," she replied, lowering her voice. "It was once a family home, but something went wrong. They left abruptly." "What kind of strange things?" I pressed, my pulse quickening. "People hear whispers, children have seen figures in the windows, and one family even reported seeing someone watching them from inside one night." She paused, as if weighing her words. "They left in a hurry, and no one really knows why." I felt a chill crawl up my spine. The gentle skepticism I held began to waver. "Do you know what happened to them?" The librarian shook her head. "No one knows. It's all just stories at this point. The house has been empty for years." I thanked her and left, my mind racing. As I walked back home, I couldn't shake the feeling the house was pulling me in. It was like a thread tugging at my curiosity and my dread. Later that day, I found myself standing in front of the house. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the yard. I didn't want to admit it, but I felt drawn to that rickety porch, to the cracked windows that seemed to gaze at me. Heart pounding, I stepped closer. The wind picked up, rustling the weeds. I peered through a dirty window. Inside, the dust lay thick over everything. It looked untouched, preserved in time. But then, I saw it. A shadow moved past the wall. I froze. My first instinct was to turn and run, but something held me there. A low whisper floated through the air, and I couldn't make out the words, but I felt its urgency. I took a shaky breath and stepped back, adrenaline coursing through me. That's when I heard it. A loud crash from inside the house, followed by a louder, more distinct laugh. A laugh so familiar, yet so unsettling. My blood ran cold. I backed away slowly, nerves overwhelming me. I was sure I'd heard that laugh before, echoing in the dark from last night. I turned to leave, but my foot hit something hard. I looked down. It was a rusty key, half buried in the dirt. Confusion flooded me. Why was there a key here, at this house? I picked it up cautiously, feeling the weight of it in my hand. As I stood there, I knew I had to make a choice. Go back home or confront whatever was in that house. That laugh lingered in my mind, like a challenge. I had to find out what was going on. With resolve building, I walked back toward the porch, key in hand, determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. I stepped onto the creaking porch, the key feeling heavy in my palm. With trembling fingers, I slid it into the rusted lock of the front door. The sound of metal grinding against metal echoed in the stillness, and I almost hesitated, but the thought of what lay inside pushed me onward. I turned the key and felt the door give way. The hinges groaned as I nudged it open. A wave of stale air hit me, and I almost gagged. Dust motes danced in the slanting sunlight, spotlighting the dilapidated interior. The walls were covered in peeling wallpaper, and the floorboards beneath my feet protested, creaking ominously at each step. I swallowed hard, peering into the darkness that enveloped the house. My heart raced, but curiosity pulled me deeper inside. I stepped into a faded living room, where old furniture sat like forgotten memories. There were family photos scattered across the mantel, their glass frames cracked and dusty. The faces stared back at me, but an unsettling feeling took hold. I didn't recognize any of them. At that moment, I froze. The familiar laugh echoed in my mind again, clear as day. I turned on my heel, ready to bolt back outside when I heard something, a faint whisper fluttering through the air. It was like a soft voice beckoning me from the depths of the hallway. My instinct screamed for me to leave, but dread held me in place, filling me with a morbid curiosity. I moved toward the hallway. Shadows loomed in every corner, and I wished for the comfort of daylight. As I reached the end, I noticed a door slightly ajar. It was different, almost calling to me. I pushed it open slowly, revealing what appeared to be a child's bedroom. Bright, mismatched colors lined the walls, but everything was dulled by age. A small bed sat in the corner with toys scattered across the floor. My heart sank as I spotted a dust-covered teddy bear sitting forlornly on the shelf. I stepped closer, feeling a connection to this forgotten place. That's when I saw it. Painted on the wall were strange symbols I didn't recognize. My eyes flitted to the ground, where old newspapers were strewn about, yellowed with time. I kneeled to pick one up, and somewhere in the back of my mind, I thought that maybe these articles held the key to understanding what had happened here. But then, as I examined the newspaper, the door slammed shut behind me. The sound echoed like a gunshot, and I jumped, dropping the paper. I scrambled to my feet, my breath quickening. I turned to the door. I was trapped. My eyes darted around the room, searching for another way out. That's when a chill ran down my spine. From the corner of my eye, I noticed movement. A figure in the corner, barely visible. I forced myself to look again, but it vanished as suddenly as it appeared. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. Silence enveloped me. I felt a rush of panic. I had come here seeking truth, but now it felt like I had stumbled into something much darker. Just then, I heard the laugh again, right in front of me. It was closer this time. I turned to face whatever was lurking, my pulse racing. Whoever or whatever was in this house with me was no longer hidden. I had crossed a line, and now I was running out of time. I was ready to scream when I heard the laugh again, but I choked it down. The last thing I needed was to draw attention. Instead, I pressed my back against the wall, trying to remember every detail of the room. My eyes scanned for a way out, but the only thing I could see was the closed door, the door that had just betrayed me. The laughter faded, replaced by a low hum that made my skin crawl. It seemed to vibrate in the air, echoing softly like a melody from a long-forgotten lullaby. I felt as though the room was closing in, the walls creeping toward me as if eager to swallow me whole. I took a deep breath and forced myself to focus. I stepped toward the small window. It was dusty but not locked. I could shove it open. The thought filled me with hope, but I hesitated. What if someone, or something, was waiting just outside? My heart pounded in my chest. Every rational thought screamed at me to leave, but I was drawn to the strange symbols on the wall, like a moth to a flame. Ignoring the growing sense of dread, I turned back to examine them closely. They twisted and curled in nonsensical patterns, inviting me to decipher their meaning. I leaned closer, and the air changed. It felt thick, heavy, as if the very atmosphere was reacting to my curiosity. Suddenly I shivered as a chill raced up my spine. I looked back toward the door, half expecting the figure to reappear. Instead, it was just darkness, a void that swallowed any light that dared to reach it. I knelt, searching the newspapers again. Perhaps they would give me some clue about the stories bound to this place. I picked up another crumpled paper, scanning the headlines. Mysterious disappearance of young girl, read one. Family haunted by unexplained events. My gut twisted at the implications. I tossed the paper aside and felt the urge to cry out again. But just as I steadied my breathing, the sound returned. The faint laughter now layered with cries, a cacophony of joy turned eerily sinister. I was no closer to understanding what was happening when the noise stopped abruptly, leaving only silence. My heart raced faster. I couldn't stay here. I needed to escape. I rushed back to the window, yanked it open with trembling hands, and took a moment to breathe in the fresh air outside. Before I could climb through, the door banged against the wall. Two spun around, my blood running cold. The silhouette of a small child stood in the doorway, framed by shadows. I blinked, hoping I was seeing things. But no, it was there. A little girl with hollow eyes staring right at me. "Help me," she whispered, her voice barely louder than a breath. I felt my breath hitch. Help. What did she mean by that? But in the next moment she was gone, slipping away like smoke. Panic surged within me. I climbed through the window, landing hard on the ground below. I stumbled back, glancing over my shoulder, half expecting the girl to appear again. I was alone, but I could still hear her faint voice echoing in my mind. What had I just witnessed? I couldn't stay in the shadows any longer. As I turned to run, I could still hear that accursed laughter trailing behind me like a specter. I had to find answers, and quickly. They were buried somewhere in this godforsaken house, and I knew I couldn't turn back now. I took off into the overgrown yard, but one thing became painfully clear. Whatever haunted this place had no intention of letting me go. I sprinted across the yard, weeds tugging at my clothes as if the very earth wanted to pull me back. Every step echoed in my ears, the sound mingling with the laughter that seemed to dance just out of reach. My breath came in quick bursts, sharp and panicked. I needed to find something, anything that could help me make sense of what had just happened. In my haste, I stumbled over a broken fence post and fell hard onto the grass. I winced at the sharp pain in my palms, but pushed myself up, scanning my surroundings. There was a shed at the edge of the yard. Maybe there was something inside that could help. I moved cautiously, the laughter fading slightly as I approached the door. It hung on rusty hinges, creaking ominously when I pushed it open. Inside, shadows clung to the walls, making it hard to see. Bits of old tools and forgotten junk lay scattered across the floor. My pulse quickened. I had to find something that would shed light on this nightmare. As I rummaged through the clutter, I caught sight of a dusty lantern resting on an old workbench. I picked it up, feeling its weight in my hands. If only I could light it. That's when I noticed a box of matches just beside it. With nervous fingers, I struck one against the box. The flame flickered to life, illuminating the dark corners of the shed. Shadows shrank away, and for a moment, I felt a sense of triumph. Then, as if summoned by my small victory, the laughter flared up again, louder and closer. I dropped the lantern, the sound of glass shattering resonating in the small space. I flinched, my heart racing again. I turned to bolt out of the shed, but something cold brushed against my arm, sending chills through me. I spun around but found no one there, just the darkness looming like a heavy blanket. I had to get out. Now desperate, I dashed back toward the entrance only to collide with something solid. I stumbled back, gasping as my eyes adjusted to the dark. In front of me stood a figure wreathed in shadows. The laughter crescendoed, and my breath hitched in my throat. It was the girl again, her hollow eyes fixed on me. "Help me," she repeated, her voice echoing through the shed, mixed with a cacophony of laughter. What do you want?" I stammered, backing away, but then the laughter morphed into a chilling chorus, drowning out my fear. I could hardly think. I felt the edges of panic closing in when suddenly, she reached out her small hand. That's when I saw it, a scrap of paper crumpled in her palm. My curiosity wrestled with my fear. What could she possibly want me to see? "Take it," she urged, her voice more urgent now. I hesitated. If I reached for it, would I be pulling myself deeper into whatever horror this was? But if I didn't, I could see her tiny form starting to fade into the shadows. Summoning every ounce of courage I had, I lunged forward and snatched the paper from her grip. The moment it was in my hands, she vanished, the laughter replaced with a deafening silence. My heart thudded painfully in my chest. I unfolded the paper, keenly aware that the shadows still felt alive around me. On it, a single sentence was scrawled in shaky handwriting. "Find the key before they do." My breath quickened again. Who were they? I glanced nervously around the shed. I had a choice to make, and time was running out. The door creaked behind me, and that laughter returned, louder this time. I wasn't alone. The hunt had begun. The laughter swelled behind me, filling the shed with an eerie echo that sent shivers down my spine. I felt the urgency building. I had to move. I stepped back into the shadows of the shed, trusting my instincts more than my sight. I needed a plan. "Find the key," the note had said, but where? I strained my ears, listening for any hint of movement. The laughter faded again, replaced by a rustling sound, like a whispering wind. A movement in the corner of my eye caught my attention. I froze. A dark shape darted across the doorway, a shadow, too quick to identify. Was it one of them? My mind raced, battling between panic and the instinct to hunt. I tiptoed toward the exit, every creak of the floorboards feeling like a thunderclap in the silence. As I reached the door, I risked a glance outside. The yard was empty, bathed in an unsettling stillness. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the grass. I stepped outside, feeling the cool evening air on my skin. I took a deep breath and tried to steady my heart. There had to be a clue. I turned to scan the area for anything that resembled a key or a sign. By the back of the shed, I noticed an old mausoleum-style garden statue, half covered in vines. I felt drawn to it, as if it was calling to me. I approached cautiously, brushing away the weeds that clung to its base. The statue depicted a child holding a key, an unsettling grin on its face. I shivered but managed to chuckle at the absurdity of it. Really? A key, I murmured to myself, feeling foolish. But the idea that it could lead to something important pushed me on. I leaned closer, inspecting the statue for any hidden slots or markings. As I reached out to touch its cold stone surface, the laughter erupted again, louder than before, mixing with a new sound, a low growl. I jerked back, scanning around me. What was happening? Before I could process it, the ground beneath the statue shifted slightly, revealing a small compartment. My heart raced. I knelt down, dirt kicking up around my fingertips. I opened the compartment, breathless with hope. Inside lay a rusty key, its surface tarnished and engraved with strange symbols. I picked it up, feeling its cold weight in my hand. "Is this it?" I whispered, eyeing the shadows creeping closer. Just then, a flicker of movement caught my eye. It was her again, the girl. But this time, Her expression was different. She looked scared, glancing over her shoulder as if someone pursued her. She pointed toward the woods at the back of the yard, her eyes wide with urgency. "They're coming!" she cried, her voice trembling. Before I could process her words, the laughter erupted again, now laced with a menacing tone. I felt the ground beneath me hum with a heavy pulse, as if the earth itself was aware of the impending danger. I'll find you," I shouted back, unsure if she could hear me over the chaos. But she vanished again, this time swallowed entirely by the shadows. I stood there paralyzed. The key felt like a weight in my palm, a small link to understanding this madness. But who were they? Then something snapped in the trees. Branches cracked violently, and the laughter shifted to growls. I bolted, sprinting toward the house, the key clutched tightly in my hand. Whatever was hunting me was close. I could feel it. As I approached the door, I realized I had to decide. Would I confront the source of the laughter or lock myself away with the key, not knowing what lay ahead? The night was only just beginning, and I was caught between secrets pleading to be uncovered and a darkness that hungered for me. The door slammed behind me, locking out the chill of the night, but my heart still raced. I leaned against it, breathless. The shadows outside felt more alive now, pressing against the walls. What just happened? The girl. Was she real? I shook my head, forcing myself to focus. I held the key tightly, studying its details. The engravings were strange, almost otherworldly. I could feel their heaviness whispering secrets I wasn't ready to hear. The laughter echoed again, faint but unmistakable. It seemed to come from the basement. A rush of dread settled in my gut. I had to know what it meant. With deliberate steps, I ventured toward the basement door, each step feeling heavier than the last. I hesitated at the top of the stairs. The house around me was unnaturally quiet, the kind of silence that pressed against my ears. I reached for the knob, fighting the urge to turn back. The air felt different down there, thick and charged, like anticipation hanging in the air. I opened the door, letting it creak slowly. The darkness seemed to swallow the light, pulling me in. Mustering my courage, I switched on the light, the bulb flickering to life. The basement was cluttered, filled with old furniture and boxes stacked high. I walked further in, but something wasn't right. The shadows moved unnaturally. I scanned the space for anything unusual. That's when I spotted it, a mirror at the far end, slightly tilted, reflecting something behind me. But when I turned, the basement was still. A chill raced down my spine. I turned back to the mirror. My heart dropped as I saw her reflection. Her terrified expression now mirrored mine. She was there, just behind me. I felt a scream build in my throat, but it got trapped. In the reflection, she mouthed something. I leaned closer, desperate to hear her. "Help me." I saw her lips form the words, fear etched across her face. But the laughter grew louder, and I felt the shadows shift, dark tendrils reaching for me from the corners of the basement. In a panic, I stumbled back, knocking over a metal chair. It clattered loudly, breaking the spell of silence. I took off, racing toward the stairs, my thoughts jumbled with confusion. "What was that?" I gasped as I reached the top. The laughter had shifted again, now sounding closer. I slammed the basement door and locked it, heart pounding wildly. I stepped back, staring at the door as if it might burst open. The laughter morphed into something more sinister, a growl laced with malice. I had to find a way out of this. Then I remembered the key. I rushed to the front door, my fingers trembling as I inserted it into the lock. Could it lead me to safety, or deeper into whatever game was being played? I had to know. As I turned it slowly, I felt a presence behind me. I froze, fear gripping my chest. I dared not look back, but I could sense it there, waiting for me to make my move. The night had only begun, and somehow, I was about to learn that it was far from over. I took a deep breath, feeling the key's cold metal dig into my palm. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was behind me was watching and waiting. I turned the key, praying it wouldn't be stuck. The lock clicked, but before I could pull the door open, the growl erupted again, louder this time. Panic flooded my bloodstream and I shoved the door open and stepped outside, gasping for air. I turned to run down the porch steps and into the yard, but my feet felt like lead. The night sky stretched above me, stars glinting down like a million tiny eyes. I looked back at the house, its dark silhouette looming ominously. Just then, I noticed something glimmering on the ground near the porch. I bent down to pick it up, a small, silver locket. Its surface was cool to the touch, smooth yet carrying an unsettling weight. "What is this?" I whispered to myself. I opened it, revealing two tiny portraits contained inside. They looked like children, twins perhaps. Their smiles felt eerily familiar. The more I stared, the more I felt a pull towards the locket. It was as if it held a piece of a memory I couldn't quite grasp. The laughter echoed again, cutting through the silence and shaking me from my thoughts. I snapped the locket shut and tucked it into my pocket. I needed to get out of here. I turned away from the house, determined to put as much distance as possible between me and whatever lived inside. But then I tripped over something in the grass, a small wooden sign partially buried beneath the soil. I pulled it free, brushing off dirt. The words were faint but legible. "Beware, the shadows creep." "What does that even mean?" I muttered. My voice broke the stillness, but it only stirred the shadows around me. I felt a shiver race down my spine. I looked back toward the house, half expecting to see the girl in the window, but there was nothing. That's when I heard a soft whisper, so close I could almost feel it brush against my ear. "Help me." It was the same voice from the basement. My heart raced at the realization that it was pulling me back. Driven by a mix of dread and determination, I made up my mind. I had to go back. I had to find her, and maybe, just maybe, discover what connected us. With a resolve I didn't fully feel, I headed back toward the porch. As I climbed the steps, my pulse thumped in my ears. I hesitated before the front door, my hand hovering over the knob. Would she be there again, waiting for me in that mirror? I inhaled sharply and twisted the knob, stepping back into the darkness of the hallway. The laughter was gone, replaced by silence so thick I could hear the pounding of my own heart. I was about to call out, when a sudden crash echoed from the basement, shaking me to my core. Something was down there with her. I needed to find out what it was. I took a step forward, whispering, "I'm coming." And just like that, deep down, I knew this was the point of no return. I stepped gingerly into the dark hallway, the wood creaking under my weight. Each step felt like a challenge against the oppressive silence. I glanced back, half expecting shadows to converge behind me, but the doorway stood alone, untouched. The hallway felt elongated, like it was stretching toward the basement, and I was being pulled with it. I approached the basement door, the crashing sound echoing again. It was different this time, almost frantic. My heart raced as I gripped the doorknob, unsure of what I'd find. Would it be the girl, or something much worse? With a quick turn, I wrenched the door open. A wave of stale air hit me, heavy and cool like the grave. I flicked on the light and it flickered, casting erratic shadows on the stone walls. For a moment, everything seemed still, but then I heard soft whimpering. It was definitely her voice, appealing and desperate. "Help me," she repeated, this time fading into the darkness. I stood at the edge of the staircase, my instincts screaming for me to flee, but this was a chance. I had to reach her. Taking a deep breath, I forced myself down the steps, each one adding to my unease. The dim light barely illuminated the cold, damp space below. The basement smelled of mold and something else, something much older. That's when I noticed a shadow shifting against the far wall. "Who's there?" I called, struggling to mask my fear. The movement stopped abruptly. My pulse quickened. "Help me," the voice said again, this time sounding closer, like it lay just beyond my reach. I moved forward, squinting into the gloom. That's when my foot landed on something slick. I looked down and nearly lost my balance, noticing the dark, glistening puddle pooling at the base of the wall. I stumbled back, heart racing. It was blood. "No, no," I gasped, shaking my head as I forced myself to look away. My instincts screamed at me to escape, but the promise of finding her made me hesitate. I'd already seen so much. What was a little more? I took another step forward, my eyes scanning the room for any signs of life. That's when I noticed it. A small corner in the shadows flickered faintly. Whatever light had been there dwindled suddenly, swallowing the last remnants of hope in the space. With a surge of determination, I fought the instinct to backtrack. I needed to get closer to that flicker, and maybe, if I was lucky, find her before it vanished completely. As I neared the source, the air thickened around me, stinging like a sharp winter wind. I reached out, my fingers brushing against the cool surface of something solid when the basement light died entirely. What? Then everything plunged into darkness. The shadows shifted, slithering around me, swirling in an unnatural dance. Fear wrapped around my throat, and I fought to regain my breath. "Help me," the voice echoed a final time, but something suddenly changed in it, a sense of urgency that sent a chill down my spine. I turned on my heel, desperate to flee. A presence loomed before me, cold and vast as if the shadows themselves had taken shape. And in that terrifying moment, I realized I was not alone. My heart thundered in my chest as I took a step back, bumping against a cold, damp wall. The darkness loomed, pressing in around me as shapes formed from the shadows. I could make out eyes, lightless and haunting, staring into mine with an intensity that paralyzed me. "Help me!" the voice cried out again. But this time it was not just the little girl's voice I heard. It was layered, filled with sorrow and anger, a cacophony of pleading that twisted my stomach. The shadows shifted closer, and I felt a surge of fear flood through me, igniting instinctual flight. I turned to the staircase, the only exit from this suffocating darkness, and bolted toward it. But my foot slipped on the slick floor, and I stumbled to my knees, heart racing. The laughter returned, louder than before, echoing off the walls in raucous, mocking waves. As I fought to regain my footing, a figure dashed past me, swift and indistinct. I felt the air shift, a brush across my arm like a whisper against my skin. Panic surged, and I scrambled backward, trying to process what I saw when I caught a glimpse of her again. "Find the key," she screamed, her face twisted in terror. But her form flickered and melted into shadow, leaving behind only the echo of her voice. I fumbled, searching my pockets, my fingers brushing against the cold metal key I had found earlier. This was it, the piece I needed. The laughter turned harsh, filled with a hunger I couldn't comprehend. I stood, mustering all my strength, and sprinted back towards the darker corner where the flicker had been. I felt the shifting shadows reach for me, trying to hold me back, but with each stride I gripped the key tightly. I could feel its cool metal pulsing with energy. I arrived at the spot where I thought I'd seen the flicker. The air grew heavier, more electric, as I confronted whatever lay in the depths. In the heart of the shadows I spotted an ancient chest partially obscured by cobwebs. My breath quickened, a mix of hope and dread filling me. Was this what she meant? I reached for the lock, the key trembling in my hand. "Help me," came the voices again, a chorus this time pouring out from the chest. They echoed through the basement as I thrust the key into the lock, my heart pounding almost painfully against my ribs. It clicked, a sound that filled the oppressive silence with an eerie finality. I hesitated only a moment before throwing it open, nerves electrifying the air as dusty light spilled out from its depths. But what emerged wasn't what I had expected. From inside the chest came a swirl of light, vibrant and warm, pushing back the encroaching darkness. I shielded my eyes and, as the brilliance intensified, something shifted in the air. The laughter faded, swirling around me then dissipating into nothing. I took a step back, barely able to comprehend what I was witnessing. The shadows retreated. Blinking against the light, I turned my gaze to the chest, the warmth radiating from it illuminating even the darkest corners of the basement. From the light, images began to coalesce. Faces of the children, the same ones I had seen in the locket. Their expressions shifted from fear to joy as they reached out toward me, their hands extended as if to pull me into their world. "Thank you," a voice filled with clarity broke through. This one was different, soft, yet resolute. "You've freed us." With those words resonating in my mind, the figures enveloped me. The warmth swallowed my fear, wrapping around my very essence, lifting me free of the basement. I gasped as the world around me blinked. Suddenly I was outside, breathing in the night air. The house loomed behind me, dark and quiet now, stripped of its malevolent energy. The weight of fear lifted, yet something nagged at me, a fragment of doubt that refused to let go. As I turned to leave, I glanced back one last time at the abandoned house. The darkness seemed to be alive still, but now I felt a sense of closure. Those trapped inside were free, but the mystery remained, lingering like shadows on an overcast night. I moved away, feeling the air change, a mixture of relief and unease blooming within me. I couldn't help but wonder, was it the children or something else that had truly haunted that house? Did they find peace? Or was there another layer to unfold? I walked away, the echoes of their gratitude melting into the night. Whatever had happened was over for now, but it had left me changed, a reminder that some questions never fully dissipate, lingering in the dusk of unknowing.